So where were you? You were talking about the autobiography.
Autobiographical fiction. What I was saying was that my life isn't very interesting to me, and I think, I mean, my past life. I'm interested in what's happening tonight. A little bit about what went on today, and pretty interested in what's going to happen in the next day or two, and week, and so on. But writing an autobiographical novel in the conventional sense, or just an autobiography, would be boring as hell to me. I'd be more interested in writing a biography of the great overlooked Indian Mahendranath Roy. I consider him the Antonio Gramsci of India, but he's very little known. That may be my next writing project after I'm done with this. But but the question of what an autobiographical novel is, or what is an autobiography, that interests me because some of the most important things that happened in my life had no cause and effect relationship that anyone would ever know about in terms of me. Like, for instance, the election of Ronald Reagan was probably one of the low points in my life. And, well, up to that point, it was probably the low point in my life, other than lacking the ability to play professional baseball. But when Reagan was elected, that was like, the worst that could have happened. But things in the United States, as I see them, have become worse and worse, and largely it's based on how the U.S. did not reform their foreign policy, but under Reagan, they rather forgot all the things and all the mistakes that had been made and became even more neo-colonial or imperial. And one of the great scandals that was never fully dealt with was the IranContra scandal. And so there's a lot of that in this book too, because it coincides with the death of Olof, and perhaps there's some connection, as there is with what I'm talking about that happened in Italy and throughout Europe from World War II on. But the main decade of interest is in the United States is the 80s, and that's when Palme died. So the point is that what is really autobiographically interesting, an outsider couldn't determine, which is why it should be an autobiography, but the content of the autobiography, as I write it, would be very, very little about myself. And I play with that in the book by having two different me's. One the writer, and the other the character who does some of the work for me, because there's some things that I just can't do because this is a book about some dark things in dark places. So I send him because he can't actually be killed. I never say that explicitly in the book, but this is the work of a coward. I was not going to go interview the spy named Spear, who's a major character in this book, as is his son, who's also named Spear. I was not going to go on. There was an interesting mission, secret mission, but it's well documented, that some British and U.S. spies went on in Belgium, an allied country that also had a secret army. But without telling the Belgian secret army, the U.S., about 10 U.S. and British spies parachuted into eastern Belgium and picked up a Luxembourg colleague, part of the Luxembourg army, and that guy took them to Vielsalm, is is the name of the town. There's a munitions depot there. And when they found out where that was, they sent the Luxembourg guy home and said, this is just a reconnaissance mission. But the next day, the Luxembourg guy found out that the munitions depot had been attacked, weapons stolen, one person killed and another injured. So this is something that this really happened. I mean, there's in Europe, the United States doesn't know much about this whole story, but in Europe, it's historians do know, and in fact, it was first announced by one of the nastiest prime ministers in post-war history in Italy, a guy named Andreotti. I think he served 6 terms, but some of the killings of the 60s and 70s and 80s that the U.S. was party to were so horrendous that eventually the stories had to come out, and he was forced to admit to Italy's role in it. And then all the other countries that were, this was all non-Soviet countries that were involved in this, and they had to admit eventually. Some didn't even know. Some prime ministers were often, like in Belgium, I think, one prime minister never even knew that this secret army existed in Belgium. So anyway, the point is that all these things that happen and that are they're a hell of a lot more interesting than what I've got to tell you about my writing, my sexual fiascos, my dog. And I do that in the book. The different character. Oh, I was talking about my other character. Why I'm a coward. Yeah, I sent my character into Belgium because I wanted to know what happened. From my point of view, I wanted to know what happened, but I can't go. So but I can send the fictional me in there, and if things go bad for him, if they find out that he's who he is and they kill him. Well, that's okay. I can just, resurrect him again. But if I go and I die, that ends the whole writing career. So it may sound crazy, but it's also something that people who think about biographies and their own autobiographies should think about. There's a great deal that's happening in the world that affects me. For instance. My wife is from India. If various things had not happened in India in the 60s and 70s, and if various aspects of the United Nations had gone a different way, I never would have met her. And my dog, who is very important in my life right now, is a bastard who was, his mother was a spaniel, and probably raped by a mixed breed Istrian bastard dog, and because he's got 4 things in him, and I love him, but what if that rape hadn't happened? Now that's something that has nothing to do with me. I just lucked upon this dog when our son said he really wanted a dog, and I went to take him to see, the dogs at the pound, or the zavatiche, as we say here, and and he was there, and we picked him, and so then you have the serendipity or fate, and dog rape that we don't even know where that happened. So. Anyway, you had one more question you told me before about the picture. That's Marko Perkovic, and he's very important to the book because he's been very important to me as someone who's given me a lot of work to do in editing and writing. I actually did he did his PhD in English, and I did the writing. We've worked together for years, and my next book that will be published by Corona Samizdat even before the second volume of this, is a circumnavigation through maritime history. It'll be dedicated to 4 people. One of them is Marco. So I took some books to Marco today. I made him pay $10 for his. So, you figure 70 people on the cover, most are going to pay $10 for the book. It's 17 for the general public. So the only thing to answer sort of your original question about or one of your early questions is anybody who wrote the book, if I already sold it to you for 17, I'm sorry. It was considered a good price by my printer. But anybody else, anybody who's on the cover, it's yours for $10. And now I just turned this into a commercial, so I suppose we're done with the interview. Thank you very much for asking and taking part in this. And this is one of a kind, but so will the second volume be. And I look forward to presenting it.